Mike's Daily Podcast.
Welcome to FF episode 2434.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
2434. It's Mike. It's not much more than Mike. It's really just Mike. And nothing else except this microphone that I'm talking into. And I might be singing too. I don't know what this is. So I'm through. Done with this song. Thanks for listening to this podcast.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Yes, it is daily, or it has been the past, couple days. Anyways.
Mike's
So it's great
Daily
to have you here.
Podcast.
I'm not going to talk about stuff in the news that's in Russia, abortion, everything, all those big topics today now. Inflation. Oh, I did kind of talk about that last show. We were talking about inflation and inflammation. I think you should be more worried about inflammation in your body and trying to fight that as best you can. And you'll feel better. And you'll be more likely to deal with things like inflation. Now, I lived through a huge inflation period. What was it, the late 70s? I remember asking my mom, why are things so expensive? Why are gas prices so high? And she blamed it all on Jimmy Carter. But she was like, it's inflation. And I said, I don't know. And she said, the interest rates are really high. Well, our interest rates are nowhere near as high as they were back then. But they're on the way up. And at some point, I believe the Fed tries to raise the interest rates to help bring down the inflation. I'm not sure how it all works. I got detoured in my learning. All I wanted to do was learn about radio and communicating and communication, but then I didn't realize, but if you learn these other things, you might end up getting rich, Mike. Not in the radio world, but in the money world.
And here's today's podcast picture.
If you understand all those things, how they were going back and forth and whatnot, and I'm not materialistic. Had I been more materialistic, maybe, buying, I want to buy the newest shiny thing, then I would probably be more concerned about money, etc. But we all need a little money, don't we, to live in this world. So my podcast picture today is, I guess I'm hitting the fundamentals, the fundamentals. The fundamentals. Today I'm talking about a cat. Well, there is a cat in the podcast picture. See, Patches at MikesDailyPodcast.com. Patches is on this guy's bed, the late great Basil the Boxer's bed. Oh, he loved that bed so. Patches is hanging out on the bed, enjoying it. Okay. So, I just don't have I don't have a good mind for numbers, which is technically the people that are into the financial world are good at that. They're good at numbers. Also, to be good at money, you got to know about products and what there is out there that makes money, and the good and the bad. And I could see where I could get interested in something like that, because I find products in general interesting. All kinds of products. Think of it as a grocery store. You're walking through the store, you're looking up and down all the shelves with all the different products. You have cereal. You have jars of clay. That was a band. And I cannot think of a single song. They were huge in the 90s. They were like a Christian crossover band. And then later, when I was married, my then wife, who loved Jars of Clay and loved all those Christian bands, were in Huntsville, Alabama, where they have this huge thing called Big Spring Jam. And it doesn't happen in the spring, but it happens around a spring. There is a spring in Huntsville. In the middle of the city, there's water burbling up, and they've created like a little lake and a little stream and a nice park, so they have Big Spring Jam all around there. And there were all these acts in one evening, and you just walk around, you go from stage to stage. In one evening, we saw Jars of Clay, they're huge in the South. Joan Jett, And War was there doing all their da 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 da. Yes. So that was Huntsville. I miss Huntsville. I'm going to tell you right now, someday I'm going to end up back in Huntsville. I really loved it. I got a taste of it when I was a growing up Californian. And then I go to Huntsville for 2 years in 2007, and I got bit. I loved it, not just by the huge mosquitoes they have there, but and the no-see-ums. The no-see-ums everywhere, the little bugs that attack your ankles. But no, I got bit by the people. No, they're not vampires. They're just wonderful, hospitable, kind people and the beautiful scenery. And I love it. And I love California too, but someday I think I might end up in Huntsville. What was I talking about? Oh, products. So you're walking around, you're looking at all these products. Some of them make money for you in different ways, okay? Hey, Mike, I got $100. I want to make that $100 grow. What do I do? So you look around and you look at some of the products that might, okay, well, you got to put this at the most basic level. You've got your bank, and your bank tells you, oh, you can do a CD, and you put the money away for 3 months, and you get the money out at the end of 3 months, and then they add a little bit extra. And then you got stuff that earns even more money, but it's more of a risk because you could just lose it all, etc. Yes, and at that point, I get lost too. At that point, I don't care anymore. At that point, I hear Jars of Clay. Oh yeah, lift me up. If I fall, lift me up. Lift me up. And if I could rain after 40 days. Yes, I do remember when they were performing in Huntsville that they were all in like these goofy gym shorts that I wore in the 80s as a kid. Gym shorts. Everybody's wearing these goofy running shorts. Guys were wearing these short shorts in the 80s. Looked ridiculous. And they were wearing that at that performance in Alabama. I don't know if it was because it was really hot and humid, because though they do not do Big Spring Jam in the spring, they do it at the end of the summer. And it's still really hot around then. So I love radio. I fell in love with radio, and I love music, as you could probably tell. Who the heck is going to suddenly bust out Jars of Clay in their conversation on their podcast? As we go outside a cafe anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valleyton, the last place on earth. I'll tell you who, Mike Matthews, here at Cafe anyway. And I'll tell you, I'm a manager, and I've been a manager for probably, I think we're coming up on 5 years this year. And I also did some managing earlier in my radio career. And I'll tell you this. It's much easier when I first started managing. People were sensible. Nowadays, and at that point, we didn't really have millennials yet. But as a manager, I will tell you, as a Gen Xer, I'm a Gen Xer. And as a Gen Xer manager, I'll tell you what gets old is hearing millennials and Gen Zers just offer up to you this information. Mike, I'm great. I deserve more money. Yes, of course you are. Of course you're great. Of course you deserve more money. No one believes that more than I do about myself, believe me. I have worked minimum wage. Heck, I still work minimum wage in some respects. But, the thing is, you telling me that, and I'm not the budget man, that's great. That's fine. You tell me that constantly, that gets old. And I'll tell you, every manager today is dealing with that. Because millennials and Gen Zers, they ain't going to put up with it. They're not going to suffer in solitude. They're not going to suffer quietly. They're going to let you know. And like I work with this one guy who tells me every day how he deserves more money. Oh, because I do this, this, and this. Oh, and Mike, I got this bill, and this bill. And what he doesn't tell me is how many video games he buys. And I do this, and I do this, and what he doesn't tell me is how often he eats out. And I need this, and I need that. I need this money, and I need this money. I want to get married. Da 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 da. And is it, okay, I got a lot of stuff I want to do in my life. I am also a human being with needs. And yes, money grants you the ability to attain some of these needs. But it gets old, buddy. It gets old, everybody. It gets old as a manager. If you're a manager that deals with this sort of incessant, oh, I am this, I'm great, I'm super. Hey, did you know? Hey, did I tell you today how great I am? And I understand that we all deserve praises. And when I was younger, I did not get praise when I deserved it. And I saw a lot of people around me who deserved praise who didn't get it. And we complained. And why? Well, our bosses were mostly old men that were drunk most of the time. Old white men that were drunk. They'd work their 9 to 5, then they'd go home and drink a zillion martinis and pass out. So they did, oh, am I supposed to tell you you're good? Oh, oops. They didn't know that. God bless them, they didn't know that. Nowadays, though, it's like, okay, come on, let's show a little respect to each other, and I appreciate that. As a society, we are saying, hey, I am an underappreciated party. I deserve some respect. I get that. But look, it's getting old. Anyway, this conversation's getting old. How about this? So a lot of people are taking their revenge on their employers by saying, I am sick with COVID. Are all of them sick with COVID? Maybe some. Maybe all. I don't know. I'm making a gross overgeneralization. But I will tell you that, oh, by the way, before I go into that fascinating bit of news, here's something that you probably didn't know. And this is according to BusinessInsider.com. So I said that all about millennials. But don't think that millennials are the most sensitive, are way more sensitive than us Gen Xers. Check it out. Millennials are being known for being sensitive, but society may be applying the label to the wrong generation. Turns out older generations are hypersensitive, are more hypersensitive than younger generations. The journal Psychology and Aging recently found, and this was published, this is not recent, sorry. This is 3 years ago. So maybe this has gotten worse or better, I don't know. But it's fascinating, at any rate, in Business Insider, that the researchers defined hypersensitivity as being unreceptive to others' feedback and lashing out at any criticism towards oneself. Huh? All right, so you're not listening to other people's feedback, so you're being stubborn and lashing out at any criticism, so you're being oversensitive. Gotcha. That's how they defined it. That's one thing I learned in my communication studies class. When you're doing the study, you got to define all your stuff and have your controls and whatnot. So this was the largest study on narcissism up to that point 2 years ago, but it examined 6 previously collected data sets. It included nearly 750 people, ages 13 to 77. And it found that that the narcissistic personality disorder, well, it was doing a study on narcissism. Narcissistic personality disorder, according to the Mayo Clinic, is a mental state that involves an inflated sense of self-importance. Yes. So this is sort of what we are dealing with managers today. an inflated sense of self-importance from employees. But is it a narcissistic personality disorder to have that? You also need a need for excessive attention and admiration. A lack of empathy is also involved, and low self-esteem, vulnerable to criticism. These traits exist on a spectrum, and they can exist even if the person does not have the disorder. Researchers found that as people in the study aged, they became less sensitive, with hypersensitivity sharply declining at age 40. But when they looked at generation-specific trends, they found that younger generations were less sensitive than their parents. Let's see. Now there's a guy named Neil Howe. Neil Howe, not to be confused with Steve Howe, who was the amazing guitarist from Yes in the early years, and then he left for a while. Then Trevor Rabin took over, and he was amazing. And then Steve Howe came back, and Steve Howe was also with a band called GTR and did a lot of rock stuff. I think he's still alive. But Neil Howe is a generational expert, and he said that news organizations often referred to millennials as Generation Snowflake. And that's a disparaging term for being sheltered, politically correct, and sensitive. And this interview was in 2017. While the stereotype has kernels of truth, Howe said the criticism paints a disordered picture. Neil said to focus just on these traits in a negative way typically leads to associated claims about millennials that have no basis in fact. And it tempts us to overlook genuine millennial strengths that will likely hugely benefit our country in years to come. This is back in 2017. For example, millennials are generally earnest, positive, accepting of others, optimistic, and these qualities have greater influence in the long run. This was according to Joel Stein, who did a story about this in Time magazine in 2013, exploring the stereotype of millennials as lazy and entitled. Baby boomers, he said, are known as the me generation, but they produced millennials, the me generation. He found that there was a bigger picture beyond the stereotype. A generation's greatness, he wrote, is determined by how they react to the challenges that befall them. And, just as important, by how we react to them. Fascinating. So, it's never, black and white, unless it's an old movie that had no color. And when they colorize it, it looks awful. But yes. So, people are getting COVID left and right. People are now that we are vaccinated, or a lot of us are, you're still hearing about people coming down with COVID, and COVID-19 testing is an important part of both treatment and prevention. Many different testing options are now available. The gold standard for detecting an active infection is molecular tests that look for viral genetic material, commonly referred to as a PCR test. Rapid antigen tests are another option, less accurate, but check it out. Those are the ones you get for free from the CDC, but they're less accurate. Now, according to GoodRx.com, if you have symptoms or have recently been exposed, knowing the best time to take the PCR test can be tricky, and timing can affect the accuracy of the test. How accurate are COVID-19 viral tests? They are used to detect active infection. There are currently two main kinds: the molecular test, which looks like it is the more reliable of the two. But they are not perfect. When someone is first infected with COVID, the level of virus in their body may be very low, and the test might not be able to detect it. this leads to a false negative result. One review estimated that 100% of molecular tests will be falsely negative on the first day of infection. Wow. As the infection continues and the virus replicates, there will be more viral genetic material for the COVID test to detect. So then by day 5, the chance of a falsely negative test result goes down to 40%. If you wait till day 8 to get the test, the molecular test, your chance of getting a false negative goes down to 20%. But at this point, you've waited a long time. Have you been isolating? Have you been infecting others? The risk of a false positive result is very low. So if your test is positive, then you should isolate until your symptoms resolve. So pretty much, if you get the positive, then it's hey, you're getting free money from your company for just sitting at home for 2 weeks. But you're also sick and you might feel miserable and other bad things might happen. And we don't want that to happen to you either. But the antigen tests, the free ones that you get from the CDC, go to their website, cdc.gov. They're cheaper, faster. They look for specific surface proteins found on the COVID virus. It needs a higher level of viral material to be positive than a molecular test. This means that a positive antigen test is also very reliable. So if it says it's positive, doesn't matter, you got it. You pretty much bet that you have COVID. But if it says negative, now we're getting into this also means negative antigen tests are less reliable than negative molecular tests. A false negative is more likely. A molecular test is generally recommended to confirm a negative antigen test. But if it says positive, Now, there's a little bit more about false and and if why you should get tested and all of that. And the difference between viral and antibody tests and antigen tests and whatnot. And that's all at goodrx.com to read up more on that. But wear your masks still. And it's just, I'm noticing that just more people are getting it now. I've known 3 people in the past couple of months to get COVID. So, if you develop symptoms, you should get a COVID-19 test right away. If you've been in close contact with someone with COVID, your vaccination status affects the best time to test. If an early test is negative, it may be reasonable to repeat the test in 5 to 7 days, just to be sure. Outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth, look who's here. Hello, Michael Master, it's Madame Rootabega, and I love jars of clay. Oh! You do? Do you like the jars that are made of glass? Yes. Do you like the jars that are made out of Nerf? Yes. Do you like the ones that are made out of plastic? No. Of course not. Look who else is here.
Oh, there, Mike. This is Valentino, the king thinking.
And it's a Bison Bentley.
Mike, you know what? The whole world needs to take a COVID test. I'd like to buy the world a COVID test and keep it company. It's the song I'd sing.
Yeah, Coca-Cola. Yeah, I don't know if that was a COVID test or Coke test or whatever, but yes. There we go. We covered a lot. What do you think about all of this stuff? You can call me. 336-MM Daily. 3 + 3 = 6. MM as in Mike Matthews. Daily as in what this podcast has been for a couple of days. We'll try to keep it going. Life is stressful. Life is crazy. But find the positive people in life. Find the positive things in life. Stay away from the stuff that will pull you down. The stuff that's negative. The stuff that's, going to hurt you. Health-wise, mentally, try and stay away from that stuff. It's little takeaway for you. And if you're going to have some takeaway, take away some healthy food. Take it out and take it home and eat it with a good friend, and life will be great. Next show, it'll be the wonderful Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the engineer. You can also email me, MikesDailyPodcast@gmail.com. And to repeat all of that, it's a thing.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MikesDailyPodcast.com. Email Mike now at MikesDailyPodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!